Let's take a deep breath.
I'm ready.
I said take a deep breath. Don't
Okay.
say you're ready. Okay, ready? Take a deep breath. Okay, and let it out. What a nice way to start the podcast.
Yeah,
you
but
just
almost-
got back from, huh?
Almost suffocating ourselves.
Oh, were you?
No.
Oh, okay, yeah, no, I'm Cuba Gooding Jr., baby. Put me under the ocean.
Ugh.
I'm gonna put me in that diver suit. Remember that movie? Remember
Yes.
that movie? He's like, all I want to do is dive under the ocean. They're like, this is literally hurting your brain. He's like, I gotta do it. Like,
Yeah. You know what else hurt his brain?
What?
All those sexual assault allegations that he was found guilty of
I
in
did
court.
not know that. I
Yeah,
was
he's a
not
bad person.
prepared.
Canceled.
I was
Canceled.
not. I did not know that. I'm like,
Yeah.
I'm blissfully unaware when most celebrities are
I'm
being
here to
canceled.
remind you. Don't
Thank
worry. I'm
you.
here to remind everyone.
It's great. It's great. I'm gonna forget.
I'll remind you again. Don't worry.
I'm glad you've let me know, because now if I ran into Cuba Gooding Jr., I would have that in the back of my mind, no matter how nice to me he was being. Thank you for that, Odie.
You're welcome.
It doesn't matter how nice he is to me anymore. Now,
Exactly.
like I like being blissfully unaware of the celebrity culture, and I'm glad that you're here to remind me. But I'm also glad that I choose to continue to be blissfully unaware
I get it.
of celebrity culture. And then every once in a while, somebody's like, people will come up to me and they're like, oh my God, did you hear Jessica Popo and Chad whatever broke up? And I'm like, who? And they're like, oh, they're fucking these famous celebrities. And I'm like, no, they're not. Like, I have no idea who these people are that you're talking about. They're like, they're huge on TikTok. And I'm like, that's not a celebrity.
I'm so glad
At
you said
all.
that. Okay. You
That's
want to know
not.
what's crazy?
What?
So I saw this post on my news feed, because every morning I like to look at my news feed, and it's like politics and recipes and like
Yeah.
Hollywood stuff. And so I think it was like Time or some magazine thing put out a post on their social media. I think it was on Twitter, like the future celebrities, and literally all the comments were like, who are all these people? The people in the photo, Kevin, were a couple YouTubers that you would recognize, like Ret and Link. You'd recognize them.
All right.
If you saw them, you'd recognize them.
You say the names, and I'm already like, I don't know who the fuck Ret and Link
You would
are.
recognize what they look like.
This
Outside
is
of those,
great.
That YouTube channel, all of them were TikTok stars, and the whole comment section was, "This is the worst list ever. Who gave you permission to do this? Who are all these people?" And like somebody found out who they all were and like linked their socials. Half of them were just TikTok dancers.
Oh, that's
Like the
so
Charli
dumb.
D'Amelio type.
The future celebrities are literally just Charli D'Amelio clones.
No,
and I only
that's
know
never
who
gonna
that
be the
bitch
case.
is because of Dunkin Donuts. And I don't even like Dunkin Donuts.
Dunkin' Donuts.
And I don't even like Dunkin Donuts. And there's, shout out to the week. Before we even start, we haven't even done credits yet. We haven't even played the music. But, here we are. We're jumping into this topic at least. Shout out to the Weekly Planet. I really liked what they relabeled content as this week as chunks. They're just like you're just producing different chunks of information or whatever.
I also think that the term content creator needs to die. I don't.
Yeah.
That and influencer, like, I call myself a video editor. When people ask, like, what do you do? I don't say, oh, like, I'm a content creator on YouTube. I say, I'm a video editor, and I have a YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Because that's what I am. I am a video editor.
Yeah.
I'm not a content creator. I mean,
You,
I guess.
you should just tell people you're a podcaster.
Oh, God, no.
Why not?
Oh, no.
Why are you so ashamed, Odie?
No,
Why-
so I was just at a wedding.
We're going to play this at our funerals. We talked about this.
It's going to have the Unpop logo on my
This
casket.
is a brand. Like, you have to be a podcaster.
Get your Unpop caskets today.
Get your that would actually be pretty dope. Come on.
No, but I was just at a wedding where
Hit me.
I know both the bride and the groom's family, really well. This is
I thought you were about to say both the bride and the groom are content creators.
no, but the groom is one of my other best friends, Mark,
Yeah.
who I've known for a really long time. Incredible
Yeah.
human being. Shout out Mark, even though I know he doesn't listen to this. He's on his honeymoon right now as we speak. But everyone was like, oh, like, you know, you get the question, right? Because I only see these people. I do what I call shotgun trips down to Florida because it's an icky place. It's an icky place. Sorry, we're canceled in Florida.
That's fine.
That's fine.
I'll be in Tampa soon. It's fine.
Well, be careful because we're canceled.
But damn it!
I know all these people.
It's all right. It's just gonna be me and Cuba Gooding Jr. hanging out in Tampa, canceled together for very different reasons.
Very different reasons. One because your co-host said Florida was icky.
We're gonna put on dive suits and just go, and then we're gonna make chunks of content off of that.
Oh no.
Because we're the next celebrities, Odie.
No. Anyways.
No, you got to finish your story after the theme music now. That was too funny.
Okay, fine.
You ready to clap?
Yes.
Okay. 3, 2, 1. On time, every time. Welcome back to another episode of the Unpop Podcast, where we are now canceled in 3 states. Woo! Get your Unpop casket soon. Play this content at your funerals. I am your Capitan Total El Siempre, Kevin Miner. Him. With me as always is
Odie Matthews, the chef, cooking up delicious content. They, them.
Chunks. You're cooking up chunks this week.
Yeah, but like
Cooking up, grilling those delicious chunks.
This goes back to what I was saying in the intro, though. Like, I'm a video editor who uses that skill to create content. I am a chef who uses that skill to cook up content.
How do you define? Hit me with this first. How do you define content?
Anything that's consumable.
So
for
literally,
value.
like Nabisco is a
for
content
entertainment
creator.
value.
They just create contents of packages, right?
No, I'm saying anything that's consumable for an entertainment value. So a podcast.
Okay, so consumable entertainment. So is a Hollywood director also a content creator?
Yeah.
Okay.
But that's the thing is they're a director who uses that skill in the director's chair to create art in that form of content. Right, that's why I'm saying the term content creator should die and the term influencer should die, because that's not what we are.
100%.
Like, everybody in their own right can use a skill set to create content if they wanted to. You know,
well, I think it comes down to intention, right? Mm-hmm. Because I would then extrapolate further and go, well, what's the difference between a content creator and an artist?
Well, I think they can be the same. Like, I think I'm an artist.
Yeah.
You know?
But say someone were describing themselves as one and not the other.
Oh.
You know, how do we how are we now parsing this, right? You know? Because you have your content creators, and here's what I would say. I think it comes down to regularity and intention. Content creators are people who are literally creating content on a predictable basis to generate an income and audience, period. Like, the purpose of doing the content isn't necessarily always, and I would say you've even experienced this, it isn't necessarily always for the love of the thing that you are making the content around, because I'm not going to say, I don't think, have you loved every movie that you've produced content around?
Well, I haven't loved the movie, but I've loved the content that I've created through it.
So yes. So then that is content creation, right? Because you're creating content, even if it's around something that you don't necessarily. Let me put. This is a really heavy thing to say. You don't have to be inspired to create content, right?
I agree, but here's what I would say. Like, going back to that article that I mentioned that had all these like TikTok stars, right? And how half of them were dancers.
Yeah. We totally derailed. I'm sorry. That's my bad.
No, we're all over the place, baby. It's fine.
Yeah, we are.
And my story, honestly, all I was gonna say is at the wedding, people asked me like what I did, and I just told them I was a video editor. That's all I was gonna say. That was literally the end of the story, but you cut me off for your stupid Cuba Gooding joke.
It was a good joke, though.
It was.
Thank you.
But I would say, like, these, in my mind, and I know that this isn't for everybody, but the way I like to look at the people that take their content creation seriously.
Okay.
I look at them and I go,
You're Mr. Beasts.
No,
You're...
fuck no. Fuck no. The fuck no. Absolutely not. Have you seen? There's a video where this guy debunks that all the stuff he did was like fake and like over exaggerated.
It's fine. Whatever, dude.
Yeah, but no, fuck that dude. Like, no.
I once again, if you told me that Mr. Beast broke up with his girlfriend, I would be like, I don't know who the fuck. I can actually only picture a cartoon drawn version of him that I saw more than his face.
Honestly.
Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, no. Anyways,
okay. So you're a video editor.
No, but
that's
what
you're
saying
telling
is, like,
people.
The people that take their things seriously, like they take being on TikTok seriously. Like I can think of a couple examples, and I kind of want to use them. So I look at these people that take their stuff seriously, and like there's this guy on TikTok who talks about politics.
Okay.
And he creates content with his knowledge and awareness of politics, and he takes it very seriously. And I think there's people on TikTok that do dances that are dancers that maybe they don't have an opportunity to break into an actual like dancing organization that can make a living. So they're using that talent to make a living on TikTok by sharing that skill set. So I think people that have these talents that can be used to create content and they take it seriously, like myself, like I love movies and I love video editing, and I hope that one day I can make a living by watching movies and using my skills to create content that people enjoy. Because the most important thing for me, and I hope other creators in this realm would feel the same way, the most important thing at the center of everything I do is the entertainment value for my audience. Am I making content that they're going to enjoy and that I'm going to enjoy too? Because
you're
that's what
Russell
it's for.
Crowe in the center of the Coliseum yelling at the audience. Are you not entertained?
Are you not
that's
satisfied?
You. That's you.
That's me.
As a content creator.
And that's the fine line. Like I will pick the movie that I want to watch for the most part, but I want to make sure my script is entertaining and that I like it and that I think other people will like it.
I like that you said for the most part, because we've spoken and there have been a few movies where it's like, no, you didn't even enjoy the process of creating the content around it.
But I enjoyed, as soon as I sat down to record the script, I had a blast because I got to use all that frustration. Yeah. But like, all this to say that I think the term content creator just bothers me because I feel like it belittles my skill set. Yeah. That's why I don't like it. And that's why I think other content creators that are passionate and are in the example I just gave, I think that they should also be upset by it, because that's removing your skill set and just placing you as, oh, well, you do stuff for social media is basically how you could sum that up. But that's not what it is. And I think that that's why I feel so strongly about it.
That's great.
Because I was talking to some other people that do similar stuff at the wedding I was at. Yeah. Like they're artists and talented, and they're trying to do social media stuff, and like they're like, no, I'm not a content creator. I'm a model. Like I'm a professional. Like this one person, there was like a professional model, and like I take that seriously, and like because I had this conversation with them. So.
But in order to elevate their career, they do have to produce some level of content, because there's that component now.
Exactly.
See, okay, so this is what I was going to say. I was going to say content comes down to, I actually think content separate from art is its own medium now, right? Like it's so art is expressed through various mediums, right? And you can take that art and then put it in a realm where it thereby is reduced to content. I think content is actually a lesser form of creation and consumption. Do you follow where I'm going with this? Like,
I'm listening.
Like you can paint a beautiful painting that someone would appraise and put a price point, like let's say that you are selling your art, right? So at a point, it doesn't matter at what point it happens, but like you create a painting, inevitably you want to sell it because you have to create a living for yourself, right? The uploading of the time-lapse video of creating that painting is content. The painting itself is still art, right? So like you have created art, but there is a component piece therein within the production that is expressed on a medium and consumed on a specific medium that is content. And that form is more readily accessible. It's of a lesser effort in some cases, right? Because like the painting is, you have to be inspired, you have to go through the entire creative process, you have to like, you're adapting as you're going through it. And the full creation of this painting is an artistic expression. And then within it are various pieces that can be extrapolated, portrayed through a different medium, consumed through that medium. And I would call those content.
Yes. And I agree.
Does that make sense?
I think that content still exists as just content.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's what I mean.
would definitely say that in a lot of ways, YouTube as a whole is just a content platform. Regardless if it's a professional short film, clips from a movie review channel, or a cooking channel, or whatever. Like, I still stand by that those people aren't content creators. Those are chefs and movie people and, things like that are using those skill sets in those fields. But no matter what, at the end of the day, what they're producing is still content. I agree with that. Yeah, and especially on a platform like YouTube.
Yeah.
And TikTok.
We aren't podcasters. We are professional comedic conversationalists.
Sorry, never been called a comedian in my life. Ever. Write this down. 5th of November, 2020. Got called a comedian.
Professional comedic conversationalist. That's what we are. Okay, so this week we have a topic. We are
I thought that was it.
What?
Not done?
Yeah.
We're done.
No, we're not done.
Oh.
No. We have a very serious topic to cover with many implications, and as it would turn out with all of our horror elements tied into religion is our topic once again this week. We're talking witchcraft. Odie, are you a witch?
No.
Okay, cool. I could be called. I could be called.
You have to tell me if you
right?
are. It's the law.
It's the law.
It's the law.
What is this, Puritan America? You have to tell me if you're a witch. Like, literally,
are you a
hat
cop?
on,
you also
broom in hand. I'm like,
are you a witch cop?
No. Are you, dude? Witch cop would be sick. I mean, I guess that's technically what Scarlet Witch is, right? Like, she does investigations and like is essentially, she's hunting down criminals.
Kind of.
Really. Yeah, cosmic criminals. Right?
Yeah.
A little bit of cosmic horror there.
Horror.
A little callback on that. It's only when it's cosmic that I'm going to call it horror. That's it. Okay, so we're talking witches this week. What do you know about witches, Odie?
Well, pointy hats, green skin.
Yep.
They're wicked. They're from the West, and
Okay.
they don't like people that use illusions in the land of Oz.
I think that's one specific witch, Odie.
Oh.
Yeah. And she dead. You might not remember the song.
She melted.
They literally played bells and then onomatopoeia'd the bell sounds in the song. Remember, like the bells are actually ringing, and then the monkey people felt the impetus to also sing "Ding Dong."
Dong, the witch is dead.
Imagine bells aren't enough for the celebration of your death. People also have to
just
mock
make
the bells.
up a song on the spot and start singing it.
Ding dong, like just
the witch is dead. So that's what I know about witches. I know they're dead.
Do you remember her name? Do you remember the wicked witch of the West's name? Do you remember her name?
Oz.
No, it's Alphaba.
I don't know anything about Wizard of Oz.
Come on. I'm going to go see Wicked next weekend.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Have fun.
Actually, no, I'm seeing it in November. I think it comes out in November. I don't know. Somebody already bought the tickets.
But I know that witches can cast spells. I know they have pointy hats. They fly on brooms. We burn them at the stake.
That's a very specific type of witch, once again. All right, let's get into it.
They have covens.
Let's talk some, not all. Once again, okay. I like where you're going. You're like a portion correct on everything.
Well,
I
can keep
There's
going.
There's a level of correctness. Which is so with demonology and with cosmic horror, we were going back into Proto-Indo-European culture, right? We were going back into Sumerian text. We were going like way back in time.
We visited the New Testament,
which is
the Bible.
Witchcraft is something. It's funny. It's almost had this ad hoc evolution that is very dependent on the cultural whim of the time, because witchcraft, what is designated as a witch, is actually not datable before Old English, and it comes from a combination of English and Germanic. So that term witch, right? It comes like the actual etymology of it. It comes from the term Wicca, right? Or wick or vik, which it typically represents like magic, sorcery, just the Proto-Indo version, the Ingvaic, actually comes from vik, which is like to divide or to separate, often referring to ingredients or different portions of things, right? And then, of course, in modern terms, we have like warlock and wizard. And warlock, actually, what I like about warlock, completely separate from witches, and we're not going to really talk about them too much, but it actually, the warlock word actually, it translates more literally to truce breaker, which is an interesting thing. Well, because in English and Germanic, they become demonized themselves, right? So let's go back in time. The goddess that a lot of modern...
Oh, that's the back in time music.
Oh,
sorry.
yeah. No, do it again. That was perfect.
Yeah.
So we're back in time now. And no, stop it.
Oh, no, there was a bird. We went back in time. There was a
Why
bird. I can't help it.
I mean,
There's birds back in time.
So you've got Hecate, right? Hecate is the Greek goddess of crossroads, which oftentimes witches, especially hedge witches in the modern era, refer to crossing the hedge or over the garden wall, or getting to the other side of the existence that we have. The ethereal realm. And Hecate was the goddess of crossroads, witchcraft, actual witchcraft, like the practice of, which was various in Greek culture at that point. Sorcery, ghosts, necromancy, just so many different things that deal with like the other world, the unseen world that was part of Greek mythos, right? So she was the goddess who kind of oversaw those concepts, right? Before that, it was just kind of something that people did. Like, some people were naturally in tune with herbs, and some people were naturally in tune with blending different oils and spices and things like that. And so it wasn't until Hecate came around that they had this patron goddess.
What year? Oh, wait, you said Greek mythology.
Greek mythology, yeah. Right. So we're talking
this would have been like
about
300 AD or BC?
No, BC.
Sorry, yeah, I meant
we're talking BC time.
BC.
Yeah, so we got the BC times. Around like 300. The early
around
to
Alexander
late 300s.
the Great's time is what it sounds like, because that's when a lot of that. Yeah.
Really, just think peak Greek Empire is when they had like their full pantheon on display, because it's not like the full pantheon was just written at one time, right? Like this happened over time. Even like Greek mythology had an ad hoc evolution, and people started building temples to different things. But before that, it was just something people would do. Like, some people were just naturally in tune with astrology. They could navigate a little better than other people based on paying attention to the positions of the stars in the sky. Yeah. Some people were really, like, they were very focused on herbs and different things like that. They were healers. They were medicine people. And one thing that I do kind of want to get into is over the course of history, other forms and practices that are intentional and involve a core of mysticism, but have a very earthly, scientific explanation, have been mislabeled as witchcraft as well. Like, but they are very, very separate. Like, you have the Druids, right? Druids are people who are typically focused on nature. If you play D&D at all, you can play a druid, and then you have a different order. And a lot of what you do as a druid in that game directly relates to rituals, witchcraft, things like that. But once again, it comes down to that intentionality. You also have shamans. For some reason, for the majority of history, for the most part, shamans don't get mislabeled as witches. Like... I think it's very often because, and this is just a theory, but I think it's sexism, legitimately. Like, a lot of shaman are men, right? And a lot of witches were women, and just the sexism that that seems to weave its way through all of our history. Of course, witches would be burned and drowned and whatever, and shaman are now, making money off of millionaires who want to go do fucking DMT for the weekend. Like, just, of course, that's the way it plays out.
Of course.
But what it really comes down to is, at its core, the best way that I could describe it is, witchcraft involves a level of intuition, earthly knowledge, and a core of mysticism. So, and I keep saying core of mysticism because the belief is that the combination of the knowledge or wisdom with the intention creates an effect that is relatively mystical. Like there's a level of manifestation to it. There's a level of willpower, and then attaching the belief in that willpower to the result that was either desired or undesired. Now, that is kind of where, to me, being any form of a witch starts to fall apart. Is the core of the mysticism. Then what it does is it creates a bias, and so whatever the result is, you either attribute it to positive or negative magical effects, but it's really just kind of the world, and we're interacting with it. I think it's, once again, like cosmic horror, I think the answers are a little more boring than we would want them to be.
I mean, especially when you said, like you said, people were more in tune with like herbs and spices and stuff. And funny enough, I had the conversation over the weekend as well about like the origins of certain recipes and cooking styles and things like that. And it's very similar. You know, like everybody at different parts of the globe at different points in history had access to different things that other people on points in the globe in times in history didn't have access to. And it all kind of, like you said, the answer's a little bit more boring than we thought. The truth is this is just how cultures kind of work, and how they're, you know, that's what they are. So,
100%. So, you know, going back into it, like, the term witch doesn't pop up until Old English, and there were plenty of people who would be described as witches, right? So Vikellen, which is the German word to bewitch, it's Middle Low German, and Vicaire, it means soothsayer. You also have Vigon, which is from Klug's law. It's the germinated. Or you are Vikon, right? So you are germinated, you are infested, you are negative in some way. And then even in the Ingvaic, it's directly related to Vika, which is analogous to the feminine version of the Vikon, right?
What about Vivitch? Is that
well, the Vivitch that's modern. But so what we have is, and then Wicca is actually, I would say that Wicca, although it involves witchcraft, kind of going to where we were talking about like content and stuff. So Wicca involves witchcraft, but it is in fact its own minority religion. So not to be
Wiccans.
So all Wiccans practice witchcraft as part of their religion. However, not all people who would describe themselves as witches are Wiccan.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, makes total sense.
So everything's going totally fine for these people who are into herbs and soothsaying and things like that, and things that have been they were, you know, decreed as rather useful. But a lot of times it's a risk reward thing, because you would be respected as a village elder. However, if you had multiple seasons of bad crops, trust me, the people are going to start going, you know, I think that soothsayer that we have here is not that good. I think our shaman is failing us, and we need to sacrifice them to appease the gods now. You know, like there's definitely a risk reward of being someone who is both intuitive and then practicing.
Yeah.
But along comes, can you guess what religion this guy was from? His name is Johannes Nieder. Can you guess what religion comes along and starts labeling people as witches?
I would guess some kind of form of Christianity.
He was a German theologian, yes. So he was a preacher. He actually worked for the Order of Preachers at Colmar, and he worked in Vienna doing philosophical studies. He went to Cologne. He was at the University of Vienna for a while. He was in Nuremberg. He worked for Cardinal Julian. So yeah, so it's very, very much tied to the Catholic Church. So this guy comes along, and he writes book 5 of the Formicarius, which is related to witchcraft and diabolism, which is demonology.
Yeah.
So this guy comes along and quite literally demonizes the entire practice, starts referring to it as maleficium. So instead of Wicca, which has a more direct relation to wisdom, knowledge, you know, foresight, things like that, he starts calling it maleficium. He's like, they're practicing negative witchcraft intentionally against us. This gets proliferated throughout the church because the church is like the most powerful form of this. it's really funny how demonology, cosmic horror, and then witchcraft all tie into religion in this way. But eventually someone comes along and they're like, yeah, no, that's bad. God doesn't like that. And when you go back in history, when a lot of these things were being kind of first framed in the realm of horror, you have like somewhere along the line a person from Catholicism who points at it and then stirs up not only fear, but a describable and almost creative fear within the people of the time. Because up until that point, well, in various places, there were probably people who were labeled as maleficium or something negative, but were practicing sorcery or something like that, right? But up until that point, you have all of these pagans who are doing these things that are good for their community. They're rituals. They bring everybody together. But the Catholic Church comes in and goes, oh, yeah, no, we do these rituals. These are the ones that God said were good. Yours are actually bad, and now we have to kill you. So, sorry. That's just, you
mentioned it last week.
You drew the short straw this millennium.
Yeah, and like you mentioned H.P. Lovecraft last week, who wanted to create things that atheists would be afraid of, right? So he intentionally made it to be something for a certain group of people to experience, and then Christians were still like, this is wrong. And it's like, yeah, like, obviously, like, it's not meant to be real. It just, like, I mean...
this guy, Johannes Nieder, he exists in the 1400s, right? So, like, we're talking like, late 13. He was in Nuremberg in 1427. So we have it, like, as far as the cultural knowledge of the world goes, America is still untouched relatively by anything European, right? So this was all happening in the world that was established by Roman and Greek empires and then broken up and turned into other kingdoms, right? So we're looking at like post Dark Ages, pre-Enlightenment Europe. This guy comes along and he's like, actually, not only can people be inhabited by demons, but those people specifically make pacts with them, and then they perform negative magic, and most of them are women, by the way. And just like that, we start creating the mythos that we now have. Because when you consume anything media related that typically involves witches, it's most often females, right?
Yeah.
That's what we're looking at.
Absolutely.
Moving forward, this is only exacerbated over time because you've got wonderful old St. Patrick. He goes to Ireland to rid Ireland of the snakes, which is what they called the pagans. They called the pagan snakes because pagan religions and even Hecate would have snakes associated with her. Different serpents were associated with that. Serpents are often also associated with knowledge, and they're just kind of viewed as weird. So we have instead of where cosmic horror last week had a fear of the unknown, this is rooted in fear of the unfamiliar, right? So witches, it's something that's viewed as weird, different, unfamiliar, and then it gets demonized. There's a negative or fear-based light cast upon it, and it starts with the church, but then extrapolates out into the rest of society.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So that gets worse and worse over time, and then of course we come up to what are called the Salem witch trials. Salem witch trials, very famous. A lot of this is. I would say the Salem witch trials are the much more violent precursor to the satanic panic that we had just less than a century ago. But a lot of the same elements are there. There are children who are saying that they're seeing spirits of people. There's a group of authoritarian individuals who are in power. So you have the adults, essentially. I wouldn't, not authoritarian, authority figures who are hyper superstitious. They've been primed by their own religious beliefs and by their own level of superstition rather than skepticism. And the combination of these baseless claims and that level of superstition ends up creating, the Salem witch trials. There are so many people who get imprisoned or executed on suspicion of being a witch. And what they actually were using was supernatural evidence. So they were using the claims of these victims, and they were saying, you know what? Enough people are seeing these spirits. We're just going to say that it's true. And we're going to, so if you are suspected of being a witch and this person can present a good case, you're in jail or executed. And then finally, I want to say it's probably like 30 years later, 40 years later, someone comes along and or not 30, I think it's like a decade, but someone comes along and they're like, whoa, wait, what's this court doing? And they're like, well, we've got this evidence. It's supernatural evidence, so we can't, there's no actual evidence locker for it. You know, it's spirits and stuff. And they're like, what the fuck are you talking about? And they're like, well, you know, we put all these people in jail because they might be witches. And they're like, might be. And they're like, yeah, we don't know for sure, but there's a lot of evidence against them. They're like, what evidence? Yeah. And they're like, you know, the stuff we were talking about that we can't actually prove. And they're like, shut this the fuck down.
Stop it right now.
They're like, this is not government. This is your superstition. You're an idiot. Get out of here. And it's funny because it pops its head up in culture. I mean, we talk about McCarthyism and the Red Scare. There's so many different times in history where a group of others gets demonized or made to be perceived as evil. I mean, I would even say, without getting too much into it, I would actually say that the way that most people view immigrants in the current day is a form of like this type of like witch fear theory. You know, they're like all of them are bad. Like this group is bad. They're like, we don't want immigrants. And it's like, okay, but why? And they're like, well, because of this evidence that I have. And it's like, all right, cool. And you saw that. And people are like, no. And they're like, so you heard about it from a valid source, and it's a legitimate issue that we're dealing with. And they're like, I think so. And you're like, because of what? And they're like, this guy said so. And you're like, okay.
You're an idiot. Shut this down.
Yeah. How about we shut this down? But it's so, but it keeps popping its head up, and what it is it's fear of the unfamiliar. Mm-hmm. But there's a person who, going back to that risk reward, they are embracing the unfamiliar. They're embracing their intuition and a portion of the world that we cannot describe. So that core of mysticism, they're using intuition and intention to create an effect. How did I do?
Great.
Thank you.
A+.
Cool. Let's get into the fun part. There's all types of witches. Odie, can you guess how many types of witches there are?
7.
Wait, nope. Way more.
10.
Yeah, more.
100.
Maybe. There's too many.
You didn't let me finish.
Really,
1,700 was my guess.
Really, there's too many, and I blame Pinterest. Yep. Pinterest is what I blame for there being too many types of witches, because I actually, in getting ready for this, I watched a couple YouTubers who describe themselves as witches. One of them, she's from Germany, and she's like, in the Western world, particularly America, there's all these types of witches. She's like, over here in Germany, you're either a witch or you're not. Like, very simple. Like, you're a witch or you're not a witch, you know? And if you're a witch, you could probably attune yourself to these different practices of being a witch. It rears its head in different ways. In Agatha all along, it's colors, right? So they have like a crimson witch, a black witch, a white witch, a green witch, right? Like, so, and that makes sense because Marvel
Scarlet
does that.
Witch.
Well, Marvel does that a lot with the colors, right? And then I'm not even going to get that much into it, but Magic the Gathering even separates all of its witches with the color pie. Well, they do a good job of.
I know, it's just funny because every week you're able to tie it in.
Yeah. Well, even enchantresses, right? Because to bewitch, the Kellen, right, which is the Germanic, to bewitch is similar in its etymology to enchant, right? So enchanting and bewitching come from similar realms, and they've just branched off culturally. Once again, you've got this kind of like when we talked about zombies last year. You have this etymology that goes from one place to another. Like, so you've got, it starts in Greece as it's expanding out into the Catholic, what I would call the Catholic Empire at that point. You've got like the Germanic kind of grabs onto it, and they're like, okay, yeah, well, Kellen. And then that gets sent over toward England, and then England's like, oh, witches. And then it comes back to Germany, and the way that the folklore is then expounded changes, right? And we get these versions of witches that we see now, but it's not until the Maleficium that we start getting all of these really extra bad like descriptions, like the storybook witches from nursery rhymes, like from fairy tales, right? So you've got your Hansel and Gretel witch. She's very pretty, but then underneath that, the secret is she's actually twisted and corrupted and has weird skin color and warts and all these.
Eats kids.
And remember, there was the part of the witch etymology that literally meant germinated, right? So like warts and disgusting things, and we associate that with witchcraft, but it's more so that I think that's an expression of the inner portion of it, right? Like if the intention and the mysticism is if the intention and the intuition are combined in a negative way, the person on the inside is ugly. That's the metaphor that's being laid out there for us, right? It's not literally that witches are green. It's that person is a jealous or negative person, right? Like there's so much of this that as you look back, you can see the literary, the metaphoric structure that has created the vision that we have today and what we're dealing with artistically, like the twisted, crooked being that exists in that place that holds that space, or the beautiful white witch. Like white witches are always beautiful. Like Glinda,
you also
the
have
Good Witch of the North.
Like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, right?
Yeah.
Where it's more of like a younger version, and like I don't want to use the word naive because it depends on the version of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but sometimes she's naive to what magic really is and like learns how to control it and what it is. So like not just internal representations with colors like you're saying, but it also like kind of represents. I think witchcraft in general and the stories around them do a good job of showing the development and characteristics of people. To piggyback on what you're saying,
very much so. And I have multiple friends, like close friends in my life, who would describe themselves as witches. Holland being one of them, right?
Yeah,
Holland.
Yeah.
And I responded. Holland and I had a really deep conversation about this one time because she's been going through this process of kind of like learning who she is in life, and we've had a lot of deep conversations about it, And one of the ones that I remember the most was I was like, yeah, you're more of like a healer though, and she's like, I was like, more than just calling you a witch, I'd call you a healer because that's your intent. She uses her art to create comfort for people with the strange and the unknown, and then she's very much into like herbs and tea and just being a good person. She doesn't eat animals. Like there's so much that goes into her intention of creating a better existence around her, like caring for plants and animals and all that stuff, that the way that what she would describe as witchcraft is being expressed, I would describe as being druidic or healing even. And so I made the joke because she's very much like me. Like when it gets hot, like we're just like, both of us are like, yeah, less clothes, please. So she's been like gardening outside all summer in like a bikini. And I'm like, you're just a bikini druid. That's what you are. That's what you are. You're just this
druid. West
Coast bikini druid forced to live in fucking upstate New York. So good luck. But really, so you've got like the colors that express witches. You have the different corners. Remember the movie The Craft? They were oriented based on geography. It was the north, the south, the east, the west, right? And then Wizard of Oz, you have north, south, east, west. And that's because there's the astrology component laid into this, and it's because witchcraft itself is such a vacuous term. It's so sprawling that like to then start to categorize it, you end up with all these different ways that we associate the word, right? So you've got like North Witch, South Witch, then you've also got like White Witch, Black Witch, and a Gray Witch, and then you've also got these people now who are calling themselves eclectic witches, which just means I'm picking and choosing what I want.
The Pants Witch, because the Sister of the Traveling Pants, they're all witches.
Oh yeah, Sisterhood of the
pants all fit
Traveling
them.
Pant Witch.
So
Yep.
That's only an explanation in that movie.
Who's the witch there? Is it the women or is it the pants?
They're all witches, and they use their power to make sure the pants all fit them.
Oh, perfect. So Sisterhood of the Traveling Witch Pants. Got it.
Because that's the movie where all the pants fit them and good things happen when they wear them.
If our pants fit each other, we're witches now.
Yes.
That's what we got. We got to trade pants and find out if we're witches.
Let's do it.
They fit. We're witches.
Yes.
But I when we get into modern cultures where we start to see, and specifically the popularism around it that arrives in the early 1900s, once again, it's when you look at the time and you look at how horror was used in the 1900s, horror was actually a really great coping mechanism for people who had seen much worse in the real world. Like look at World War I, look at World War II, look at the Vietnam War and the turmoil that existed in the ugliness of humankind. There's a lot of good that we can see too, but the ugliness of human nature that rears its head through the 1900s as we're rapidly accelerating toward a techno-based future. You now have witchcraft is almost like this. There's almost this antiquery a part of it, right? There's this part of it that's seemingly archaeological and even more mystical now because it seems out of place in a techno-based first world country, right?
Yeah.
So where witchcraft before was this fear of the unfamiliar, in that like people were maybe doing something with herbs that had not been done yet. Now we're doing so much with medicine and the molecular, and like you and I are literally talking to each other over computers right now, right? So witchcraft is it's this fear of the unfamiliar, in that they're more connected with nature than we are. And so somewhere in the middle of there was this realm where like all of a sudden people are like, oh no, witchcraft that's actually. So, like, yeah, you're good with herbs? Cool. Rock on. Like, that's good. We need people who do that, because we're losing that. Like, holistic medicine, if you were to take holistic medicine as it's practiced now and put it back a couple centuries, people would be like, no, burn them. You got to burn them.
Burn 'em.
They're doing too much. These people with all these crystals and shit, nah, can't do it. God said nah. God's, like...
Shut it down.
That's what it is, Like, they're just... but... So from that, and where I think we're going to have more of a this is kind of the end of my little preamble, but I think we're going to have a much better discussion. Witchcraft, as it's examined now through comics, TV, books, culture, it always has, and I would say once again, it always has a way that it's expressed that involves a combination of a core of mysticism with intuition and intention to create an effect. So even like, I would go so far as to say even Doctor Strange, despite his title, is a...
He's not a doctor?
He is a witch. Well, he's called the Sorcerer Supreme.
He's a
but
sorcerer.
When you look at witch actually incorporates the idea of sorcery, and even going back to Hecate, right? You have sorcery. She oversees that. Like they're so directly intertwined. I would actually say you could just call Doctor Strange a witch if you want.
I mean, he is.
Yeah. And he a lot of times the way that their magic is expressed is through items, right? Like we have the classic items. We have rings, cauldrons, appendages, cloaks. Like, yeah, there's so much that comes along with it. Like if I asked you, like, how would you describe a witch? I mean, you would say she's from the West and doesn't like
I already
the
did
wizard.
this.
And yeah, but
Copy and
really,
paste
like
here.
we have images in our head. Right.
Yeah.
So we have the people who practice witchcraft. A lot of this is directly related to the people, like the garb that people would wear during pagan rituals.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Because paganism is really, that's the fear of the unfamiliar, because Catholicism was attempting to, going back to cosmic horror, they were attempting to create answers in the universe using their theology rather than the world around them. So like heaven, this otherworldly place, becomes the bar that's set, and that's what we're really working for. And this world is just the vessel laden vessel-laden landscape that we are navigating to get there, and we're going to use all the reasoning that's in these books to get us there. And then they go to another country and they're like, whoa, what are you guys doing? And they're like, well, we were going to kill this lamb because we haven't had good crops in a while. And they're like, but Jesus was a lamb in this book, so we have to kill you now.
The Lamb of God.
And that's what very oftentimes when religion meets paganism or what would be labeled as witchcraft, they're like, oh, sorry, we have to kill you now. That's actually because God said
that's the
so
rules.
It's okay. And even though murder is on the list of no-nos,
this is okay.
We're allowed to now.
This is fine right now.
Yeah, they're like, we're allowed to, and they look over at Johannes Nieder, and he's like, yeah, oh yeah.
They do like the Jim looks at the office camera like.
I do want to point out once again, the Germans have made their way into this with Johannes Nieder. He's like, oh yeah, kill the witch. You must. You simply must. It says here. But yeah, so But now I dare say in our society, right? You have many people who I would describe as cool witches.
Cool witches.
Cool witches, baby.
Yeah.
And I know plenty of them. I'm going to see a bunch at the Lunar Fair next weekend. I'm actually going to be with Holland. She's selling her art, right? We're setting up the booth. We're hanging with people. And there are so many people that have now become familiar faces to me just from doing these events. And I do want to point out again, being at that event, like, everyone's so happy. They're all, like, very, like, loving, caring. They're helping each other. Like, there's so much that's going on that's good. And then I come back to regular society, and people are like, I don't trust people, and I'm afraid of shit. And I'm like, I think we could pick up a couple lessons from these witch pagan people that I don't know if you've noticed, but this subculture over here of all these people wearing like black and darker imagery, like, we're actually pretty happy. We're actually okay with the world right now. Yeah. So, what, Odie, just to engage you, I've just talked a ton.
Yeah.
What's your favorite witch? Who's your favorite witch? Who do you like?
That's a good question.
Yeah.
Hit me. Because I wasn't really allowed to watch or consume anything for 18 years of my life that had anything to do with like dark magic, witchcraft.
Oh yeah,
witchery.
I forgot your parents were really closely related to Johannes Nieder.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean,
forgot about that.
Yeah. So direct descendants. I mean, I am German mostly, so it makes sense.
Oh wow, yeah.
Yep. But
once again, who's the real bad guy here? That's what we really need to ask. Is it witchcraft or is it the people who ban things like that? All right. Keep going.
So I don't know, like for me, I experienced things like Harry Potter as an adult, as like well into my 20s at the point that I watched, and I still haven't even watched it all. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting because this is the one category that we were going to talk about where I'm like, not really my thing. Witches have never, like, witchcraft and like warlocks and stuff are something that I've more recently gotten into.
Okay.
And I like some depictions
is that
of
through
them.
D&D or is it like
a little bit? Like,
okay, yeah.
I like them in certain settings, like in like the D&D movie. What there is in the Lord of the Rings universe. Mm-hmm. That show I told you guys about, Owl House. I like some depictions of it, but then there's other depictions of witchery and witchcraft that I'm just like not super into. Like, it depends on how they're portrayed for me personally.
Hit me with the ones that you like and the ones that you don't like.
So I really like the way that witches were portrayed in Hellboy the Crooked Man.
Okay, go on. I haven't seen it yet. Hit me.
Yeah. So I like that they incorporate things like the Witch's Bowl, and like really witchcraft is like known in this world, but it's still something that like, even though it's known, it's still really scary because like witches go around putting curses on people and like causing mayhem and like living forever and making deals with the devil. And like,
these are more of the Maleficium and
so
post-Maleficium witches. Yeah.
I like when witches are depicted in horror as the villains because I think they make because you can do so much with them. I think like in Hellboy the Crooked Man and other horror stories like the Vivitch, like I think they make a really good unknown scary threat. Yeah. But I also like recently when they're good guys too. So
like
again, Owl House, I really like how witches are depicted there where, everyone's got like certain types of magic and everyone like man, woman, otherwise, because there's non-binary representation in that, but like no matter what, you're all witches. Like everybody's a witch. Good, bad, evil, you're all witches, which I thought was kind of like a cool leveling the playing field. Like, oh, just because you're a boy, you're a warlock, and you're a girl, so you're a witch. They like, nah, everyone's a witch, brother.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. I've never seen Wicked. I've only ever watched Wizard of Oz once. Okay. So truthfully, I don't know, like we talked about the Wizard of Oz, but like I don't really know if those witches are good, bad, otherwise, or good representation.
You know what's funny about the Wizard of Oz is they have that conversation in the beginning. Glinda is kind of like the lore drop witch, right? Like she shows up and everybody's like, "Oh my god, fucking Glinda's here," and like. And then she's like, well, you must be a witch, Dorothy, because you killed that one. And she's
my sister.
Yeah, she's no, not her sister. It's the Wicked Witch of the West sister, the Wicked Witch of the East, that she kills in the beginning of that. Yeah,
that's mean.
And she's like, well, Dorothy, welcome to Oz. You've killed a very powerful witch, and you can put her shoes on now. But bad news, she has a sister who wants to kill you. And
Even though you didn't do this on purpose.
And Dorothy's like, well, who are you? And she's like, I'm Glinda the Good Witch, and I'm here to tell you that green witch is a fucking bad one. She's a bitchy witch.
And then she pieces out in her bubble.
Yeah, and then she pieces out in her, and then she comes back at the end. And she's like, you've had the magic to go home all along, but thank you for killing that bitch for me.
I hated her for a while.
Legit, she sends Dorothy off to kill the Wicked Witch.
Yeah, she hires a hitman.
Yeah, essentially, she's like, well, and she doesn't tell Dorothy that either. Like, Glinda's not necessarily the good witch, and this is where I think you should see the movie Wicked, and I think you will like it, because it's like, is Glinda really the good witch? Like,
as far as I understand it, she is not.
She's not. Like, if you look at it from from the perspective of intention and desired result, she's like, I'm going to send this girl who just landed here out into the wilds to hopefully kill my nemesis. And if she doesn't, I guess I've got my bubble anyway. But then and then you've got the Wicked Witch of the West, and in the development, so Wicked, the book turned musical, is actually kind of a redemption piece for the Wicked Witch of the West. It's also a prequel because it's set before The Wizard of Oz, but it explains a lot more about Oz and how the Wicked Witch of the West came to be. She was actually born with green skin. Like, there's so much that's in that, and I'm really excited to go see it. It's really fun. Stephanie actually bought tickets for a ton of people, and
I'll go watch it. We can talk about it.
Yeah. And she called me up and she's like, I don't know what row to put you in, but I'm gonna put you in the row that I call row of guys. And I'm like, whatever. I don't care. Like, I was like, how are they separated? And she's like, well, there's like a theater people row, and I'm like, that's fine. I'm like, I know I'm not in that one because I just don't know the musical, but yeah, so like you've got those witches, and like they kind of explain like good witch, bad witch. But then you look into Hellboy, and I'm sure there's all different types of witches in that one.
Yeah. Well, okay, so here's my favorite witch.
Hit me.
My favorite witch is Gruntilda from the Banjo-Kazooie video game on the Nintendo 64.
She is green.
She is green.
Yep.
She has a cauldron. She cackles. She's mean. I like her.
She hits you with nasty spells. Right? Yeah, and she's got like that laugh. Yeah, okay, that's good. I would say my favorite witch ever is I love the witch from Willow. The evil witch from Willow is fucking hilarious. And not only that, Willow actually harkens back to, so the whole plot of Willow is around this witch like wanting a baby. She's like, I want that baby because I need to live another couple hundred years. And that like goes into the Maleficium, right? Like Johannes Nieder. Like it's playing. It actually, they do a really good job in Willow of like overlaying this one witch character with so much. There's even the island in the Odyssey that the men go to where they get turned into pigs. That is viewed as a form of witchcraft in Greek mythology. That's overseen by Hecate, right? So Hecate, the goddess who oversees this, is like, yeah, you can turn men into fucking pigs. Go ahead, do your fucking thing. I believe it's Circe who does that actually. So you've got this really funny layer of that gets laid over the movie, because what does the witch do in like the penultimate fight in the movie? She turns literally all the men into pigs. She turns she turns a whole battlefield of people into pigs. She's just like, you're all pigs, and like they literally become pigs. And that's how like that's intuition, intention, and then result. Yeah. So she's probably one of my favorite examples of witches in pop culture. We of course also have The Craft. Love The Craft. Mm-hmm. One of like that was The Craft was like I think this will explain a little bit too much about myself. The Craft was like, I watched that movie and I'm like, I have a crush on every woman in this movie. Like as a young man, I was like, I love all of these women all at once.
Bewitched too, the show.
Yep.
That's a good one.
That was a pop culture version of a good witch, right?
Yeah.
So like you've got this good witch who kind of she's created, but what's funny about that is Bewitched is just like the witch version of I Love Lucy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's
Like,
what it was
she's
kind of.
like-
I think that's what it was kind of intended to be.
Yeah. And then you also had, and then to compete with Bewitched, you eventually had I Dream of Jeannie, right?
Oh,
and
yeah.
and that comes along. And what is the genie
did,
in
like,
that?
the hip
Because she
thing,
grants
right?
witches all. She grants wishes. She grants wishes all the time.
Which is,
she's a witch.
it's
Really.
a different
Like,
version. Yeah.
She
'Cause
comes out of a
didn't
lip.
Bewitched had the nose thing, and didn't I Dream of Jeannie? She like did the hip thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, oh no, she nodded her
Nodded,
head.
that's what it
Yeah,
was.
she put her hands on her hips and nodded
That's
her
what
head.
it was. Yeah. Hands on the hips and then nod. Yeah.
But really, so like, let's just go over, we'll go over a list of witch movies. I mean, you had your classic Hansel and Gretel. That was
have you heard
the
of Hansel
action
and
packed.
Gretel Witch Hunters?
Yep. You've got that's what I'm talking about. Witch hunters, right? You've
Oh,
got
that one's funny.
you've got your Vin Diesel, The Last Witch Hunter.
Bad movie.
You've got Snow White and the Huntsman. Snow White, the witch, classic example. It's the queen. She
Yep.
turns into the witch because that's who she is on the inside. She's negative. She's ugly. She wants
She's
to live. She wants to be
mean.
beautiful. And in order to do that, she's willing to poison someone. Once again, that's what's making her ugly. That's the real metaphor for the bad witch there. You've got the Blair Witch, right?
Oh yeah, that's
Blair
a good
Witch
one.
Project. We've got the Vivitch, which I think the Vivitch does such a good job
Oh yeah.
of just dialing it up to 100 immediately.
It's a good
like
movie.
yeah, and really it's a movie that's more about trauma and society more than anything else, right? Like when you really like pull back the lens on it, you're like, oh, this was really just about trauma in society and how families cope with it and the negative and positive ways that we deal with it, right? So I think that was a really, like, I highly recommend people watch the Vivitch. Then you have your more fun version of it. You got your Disney's Hocus Pocus.
I was gonna say Hocus Pocus.
Yep. You've got your practical magic, right?
Mm-hmm.
You like so there's the fun versions of these. And Hocus Pocus takes these bad witches and then just kind of makes them like cartoony spoofs. Like this really funny romp foyer into witch culture. But they do in the beginning, think about it, they do all the witchy things. They're eating children. They don't confirm that they're eating children, but like they're at least turning them into potions. They're like sucking the life out of them. This tends to be the most pop culture use of witches is that they are targeting children. They're sucking the life out of them. They're staying young and beautiful. How fucking dare they? Like,
Yeah, I mean it's similar to Halloween Town.
Yep.
Another good one.
Hit me. Yep.
That's
We've
like
also got
another Disney Channel one.
other stories. We've got The Conjuring, right? We've got the classic tale Witches, right?
Yep, that's on my list.
Witches actually scared me as a kid a little bit. Like I was like, oh yeah, no, this is gross. Like these ladies are disgusting, and they turn the boy into a mouse, and then he has to like as a mouse somehow stop this witch ritual, right?
Yeah.
He's like, that one's really good. I really
Into the Woods.
Into the Woods. Well, Into the Woods has the witch as the central character. And I'm glad you brought that up. So the witch in Into the Woods, it turns out, is just a spurned ex, really. And like there was like this couple that lived next door to her, and they kept robbing her garden, and she's like, so I put a curse on your family and you can't have fucking kids. Like I don't want you, like your parents literally while your mom was pregnant would not stop robbing me, so I put a curse on your fucking family. You can't have kids. And the guy's like, well, I don't want that. And she's like, well, too bad, your parents started it. And he's like, so then they have to go off into the woods and gather these ingredients, right, to break the curse. But then at the end, it's the witch who comes back and kind of reveals to everybody, like, hey, be careful what you say to children. Like she actually has like the big those are the literal lyrics. Careful the things you say.
Yeah.
And she's like, don't fucking lay children with all of these myths that are going to negatively affect them throughout their entire lives. Don't let them believe that some magical Prince Charming is going to come and solve all their problems. Don't let them believe that they can just do whatever they want when they go off into the woods. Like you have to weave this sort of like this spell of language that will hopefully end up for the best, you know? And like, I think it's really cool that the witch, this unfamiliar character amidst the rest of the cast, is the one who ends up like imparting the biggest lesson of the entire musical.
Yep.
Yeah.
Another one that I think you would appreciate,
Hit me.
Kiki's Delivery Service.
We love Kiki's Delivery Service. Studio Ghibli, baby.
Lots of witches in those. Like it.
Lots.
Like it.
Well, yeah. She's
Yeah.
the cover's her flying on a broom.
Yeah.
I did want to bring up Stardust. Is
that has Daredevil himself.
Yep.
Charlie
Christopher or Charlie.
And I think Henry Cavill and Charlie Cox are both in that, actually.
Is Henry Cavill in that?
Let's find out why you
look
talk
it up.
About it.
But yeah, no, Stardust is a really good story. The witch is the main protagonist again. Not protagonist, antagonist. It's Nicole Kidman. She's so great. She's absolutely phenomenal. And actually, the three witches in that, even though I want to say Stardust came out before Hocus Pocus, they have a very
2007 was Stardust.
Oh, so
and it has
the movie, but
yes,
yeah,
it's Charlie Cox, Ian
Yep.
McKellen, and Henry Cavill.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So like you've got these three witches again, and once again, this is a coven, right? So you have your solo witches, you got your coven witches. Covens are typically acting together to make their magic stronger. This exists in literal witch culture, like people who describe themselves as witches will do seances, things like that. Witches are often associated with the occult, but we know that the occult, the last four letters of that are cult, and what is the occult? It's an organized form of I wouldn't necessarily call it religion, but it's observed with a religiosity of mysticism. So witches, they've come in and out of culture. They've been here literally the entire time, though, and our fear of the unfamiliar is what gives the story of witches power, really.
Absolutely.
Yeah. If you were a witch, what kind of witch would you be?
I'd be a good witch.
Oh, good. Like Linda?
No.
Would you have a bubble?
No.
Would you be pink?
I want to be a witch.
What would you oversee? What kind of a witch would you be?
Probably like an environmentalist witch. I'd probably be like a witch of like the woods
like a druid.
or something. Yeah, honestly.
You'd be closer to a druid.
I would
Druids and
I would
witches,
live in the mountains and cast spells on people that try to cut down trees they shouldn't cut down, and people that make golf courses.
Oh yeah, perfect. Yeah, so you'd and then you would be rightfully burned at the stake. Good job.
Yeah, I'd be the planet captain or Captain Planet of witches.
I'd be a coffee witch. That would be me for sure.
Oh.
I kind of am in many ways already.
Dumb. I'd be a movie witch.
Ooh, a movie witch.
Yeah.
You wouldn't be a sandwich?
Like sandwiches though.
You could be a sandwich.
Could
I mean,
be.
that's a dry, dirty.
I hate sand.
Yeah.
It's coarse and it gets everywhere.
We like sandwiches. We don't like sandwiches.
Yeah,
Like
exactly. That's our tagline. Unpop. We like sandwiches, not sandwiches.
Yeah. Another couple ways that this kind of shows itself, I did want to bring up, in the Warhammer universe, you have different forms of the occult. You have different types of worshiping the chaos gods. A lot of times the women who worship the chaos gods will be referred to as witches. In Tamriel.
Destiny?
In Destiny, you have witches, right? You've got a literal witch is like a raid boss, right?
Yeah.
So it pops up in video games. It pops up in other pop culture. It also witches have shown up in comics quite a bit. There's the Scarlet Witch. There's multiple different versions of her. There's Baba Yaga, who's more of a folklore witch. You have the Witcher, right? The Witcher deals directly with many witches and different types of mysticism, magic, and the expressions thereof. There's even in Game of Thrones, even though it's not really in the show, there's the witch. I think it's Maggie the Frog is her name, but she's like the witch that curses Cersei in the beginning, like in her own backstory. So that's a character. I mean, spoilers for Game of fucking Thrones, I guess. But there's many like expressions of Irish and Celtic paganism in Game of Thrones, and that is where a lot of the suspicion and maleficium of witches came from, was specifically Celts. And the Celts were recorded, I think, originally by Romans as peoples living on the outskirts of their land who observed these pagan, druidic traditions. One last thing that I did want to point out is, like, druids, very different from witches. They're much more just associated with earth and natural practices themselves. Think of them more as holistic practitioners rather than witches. Alchemy, very different from witchcraft in that you are attempting to combine. However, witchcraft could be depending on the society you're in and the level of religiosity that exists therein, all of these things can be classified as witchcraft, right? Or heresy.
Well, they make potions.
Right?
That can also be classified as alchemy.
Exactly. And one of my favorite stories that involves a witch, we've got Brahms' Slewfoot, which actually delves into a lot of imagery and just how like the Puritan society viewed different things, because you have a forest spirit that manifests itself as a Baphomet. Like, it kind of looks like a Baphomet, like it's like a goat person thing, right? And it's taller than normal people, but it's more closely related to the land and the spirits therein than anything else. But like, of course, the Puritans are like, that's the literal devil. Like, and then you have this character, the main character is someone who dabbles with like making different remedies for the women of the town, but those in Puritan society were regarded as potions, even though she was just using herbs and natural ingredients to create remedies for women. Those were viewed as like spellcraft, witchcraft, things like that. And so she becomes this antagonist to the town, even though she's the protagonist of the story, like this very independent woman. And then, of course, like, the character that helps her the most is Slewfoot, who looks like a Baphomet, right? So it's very easy to look at them at face value and go, that's a witch, and the literal devil, which is like, that's the Christian fear, is that it was these people who made pacts with the devil who are now like cursing us and hexing us and things like that. The word hag, which is used to describe witches, often very closely related to the word hex, and even etymologically speaking, coming from similar places. So, like, I love Slewfoot because it takes all that imagery and goes, yeah, but she's actually the good person in this story. Like, and then at the end, it's kind of like, oh, well, she actually might be a bad guy now, but there's like a nice little like epilogue where you're like, oh shit might be going down here. But I really do like how that comes across and how it's portrayed. Morticia Addams very often viewed as being witch-like, although it's never really shown that she's like an actual witch. But Granny in the Addams family does have a cauldron, is doing seances, does do witchcraft. So there's definitely. But then what's really funny is in almost every iteration of the Addams family, there's some sort of an allude. Like they allude to the fact that they actually don't know where Granny came from. Like they're like, she actually might not even be part of this family. She might just be here. Like,
she's always been here.
Even in the musical, there's like a brief moment where Gomez and Morticia, when they're arguing, Gomez is like, my mother? I thought she was your mother. Like, it's like a really funny beat. But yeah, so, witchcraft, it's all over the place. I think it's what it is going back to what I originally said. The reason that we have witchcraft and a view thereof culturally at all comes from fear of the unfamiliar expressing itself through theology to either designate or demonize a different group of people.
Agreed.
Cool. What's your jam?
So my first jam, I think I'm only going to do one this week because it's the one that I want to talk about.
Yeah.
I watched the Netflix movie Rebel Ridge.
Okay.
So it has Don Johnson as the like evil sheriff, who I absolutely like. But it has Aaron Pierre, who people might know because he has been booming
a TikTok
lately.
star, and he's one of the new celebrities.
I absolutely love this guy. He was in I believe he was in, so he kind of got his start in Krypton, which was like a pretty bad show on the Sci-Fi Channel. Okay. But then he was in Old, and then he got the role in Rebel Ridge. And
who is he in Old?
He's the rapper.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
yep,
okay.
Mid-sized sedan.
Yep.
So he was in Rebel Ridge. He just got cast as Jon Stewart in the Lantern show.
Oh, hell yeah.
And he is Mufasa in the Mufasa Lion King movie coming out.
Oh, good.
This dude is incredible. So Rebel Ridge, he plays a Marine veteran, which is why I was like, fuck yes.
Hell yeah.
And what I like about this is, unlike Reacher, which I'm a big fan of Reacher, where he, is this unstoppable tank and he just plows through everything. This guy was never deployed because it turns out he was really good at the Marine Corps martial arts program, which is like the in-house, it's called McMap, right?
Yep.
He was so good, in fact, that he actually is on like the Wikipedia page in this movie, right? So like
Wow.
best of the best. So he's in I want to say it was like Georgia. It was in the South. And basically
Okay.
the whole plot is he's riding his bike into town to bail out his cousin.
Yep.
But this town is corrupt. It's racist. It's corrupt. It's got bad police officers. They
Okay.
run him off the road, arrest him, take his money, let him go, but keep the money. So now he can't bail out his cousin. And his cousin needs to get bailed
that's
out
lame.
because his cousin was a witness for like a huge gangster. And if he goes to jail, he'll get found out and definitely murdered, right?
Wow.
So this whole movie, the main character just has to kind of like use his mindset and his skills to like tactfully and like carefully take down these police officers, get his money back, and try to get his cousin out. And about halfway through, about the 40-minute mark, it takes a huge right turn. And I was like, this is a big leap. Like, this is a big leap that this movie's doing. And from that moment on, I was so engaged. And let me tell you, Kevin, as a Marine Corps vet, it was so satisfying to watch somebody beat the shit out of racist cops.
Oh, yeah.
So satisfying.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely fantastic movie. It's on Netflix. I really recommend it. Don Johnson does a great job playing the villain. If you've ever seen like Bridge to Terabithia, it's got Anna Sophia Robb in it. Just great all around. And I'm really excited. This guy, like, I want him in more things. He's 30, so plenty of time. Like, I think he's gonna be a great Jon Stewart. I think he's gonna like do great fucking things. So I definitely recommend that one.
Yeah, that's beating up racist cops is like the progressive version of a Clint Eastwood film at this point. Like, you know, like it really is. It's just it's the other side of the cultural scale. It's like Clint Eastwood is literally like the later half of his career is just hunting down immigrants, and then over here on the other side we have beating up racist cops. Yeah, so that does sound good.
It's good.
It sounds like it was really well done. I love that. I'm just like, oh yeah, beat up some racist cops. Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah.
You should watch it if you get the chance. I know you're super busy, but if you get the chance,
I will get the chance much later.
At some point.
I got 2 jams this week. I want to throw down one of my jams is Rocky Horror Picture Show because I went and saw it on Friday night with my friends Lauren and Sincerity. They're both awesome. Lauren and Sincerity both kind of dressed up for it. I did not because I came straight from work. I literally worked from like 7 to almost 7 and then just went to Rocky Horror. But I fucking love that movie. It's so fun. And getting together with a large group of people dressed up as partygoers or different characters from the movie and watching it and just enjoying life is like one of the better things that you can do around this season because it's like it's just fun. It's just silly. It's just weird. Tim Curry's amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Like Susan Sarandon, just killer. Like such a good movie. Such a good time. So that for sure. And then Agatha All Along coming down on a jam. Because I surprisingly love that show. And I didn't care that much for WandaVision. I was like, WandaVision was fine.
It was fine.
It's fine.
It was fine.
Yeah. But like this show's actually good. And like they were flying on brooms in one episode. Like it's really good. I've been really enjoying it. And I fell asleep while we were watching it last week. Stephanie and I were watching it. And I literally passed out. And I apparently missed the big twist in the show that she said was good, and Steph is a good judge of this stuff, so I'm excited to watch it. I'm excited to figure that out. But definitely loving that. Honorable mention this week: Natalie Carr has a new album out.
Ooh.
Yep. So definitely a jam, but I only wanted to do 2. But we should mention Natalie Carr, her new album Rotten is out. Speaking of witches and the topic that we had this week, the cover is her sitting on a very sunny landscape with a tree behind her and a singular weird-looking pear with like this metallic blue paint bleeding down it in her hand. Album's called Rotten. Well, it's an EP. But it's called Rotten. It's a few songs that she's already released this year. And a couple songs that were yet unreleased, and I'm honestly I've been digging the whole thing all year anyway, so it's only a natural include. Yeah, for sure.
Love it.
Absolutely. Odie, I have a question for you. This came up last night. I was hanging out with my friend Gwen, and she asked the question because she's a big fan of Tomb Raider, which just got an anime, right?
Yes.
And we were talking about anime and just like Castlevania, Tomb Raider, stuff like that. So Gwen proposed the question. She goes, when does grave robbing become archaeology, and when is archaeology not grave robbing? And that led to a very interesting discussion, but I want to hear your take.
If you're Indiana Jones, it's archaeology.
See, okay, but that's an if, right? So is what he's doing archaeology or grave robbing?
I think. Okay, here's my honest opinion.
Hit me.
No jokes. All jokes aside.
Yeah.
If you are just a Joe Schmo who is like one day like, I'm gonna go dig up a body and see if like there's something there that's valuable so I can go sell it and make money, you're grave robbing.
Mm-hmm.
If you got a degree in archaeology and you work for an organization and you're like, hey, I think this is a site that has historical value and like could tell us more about the world, it's no longer grave robbing, it's archaeology for history's sake.
Okay. Here's what I said. I said all living cultural adherents need to be dead for it to be archaeology. Like the culture has to not exist anymore for it to be archaeology, which in many cases means that like Tomb Raider herself was actually just grave robbing and not doing archaeology because the culture was still very much alive, and she would get there and there would be like these tribesmen that were just like, hey, no,
Don't do that.
like just darts, like stop it, we're gonna hit you with poison darts.
Like, this is going in a museum.
Yeah, like, and she's like going after these relics, and the like literal tribesmen are popping up, and she's like, oh no, I still need that relic.
It belongs in the museum.
I still need the relic, which is like, yeah, and she is the female Indiana Jones. Let's be real, and then Indiana Jones is the male Tomb Raider. But even looking at the name itself. Grave robbing, tomb raiding. Like it's literally it's self-describing. And we were talking about this, and I just kind of realized, I'm like, well, actually, all archaeology is grave robbing, but not all grave robbing is archaeology. That's what I came down on. I was like, some grave robbing is literally just grave robbing, but
exactly.
All archaeology is grave robbing, but for the purpose of science.
Agreed.
Yep. And that's it. That's what we're
it.
ending on. We did witches, and we're talking about grave robbing, and it's almost the end of October. Next week, it'll be November, and we're going to talk about... What are we talking about next week, Odie?
I don't know. We'll figure it out.
You got to know.
Okay, here.
Tell me what we're talking about.
Oh, it just says we'll figure it out.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does. I'm
You
reading
didn't
it right
bring
now.
up the note, and it says we'll figure it out.
It says Kevin wrote in the notes, we'll figure it out. I trust Odie.
Next week is the Pumpkin Spice Podcast.
Next week is actually, it's already Christmas, holiday season stretches.
Oh, fuck, it is already Christmas.
Bam! So, yeah.
Oh,
And then we'll talk about Wicked.
Speaking of pagan holidays.